Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Tanking Made Easy. Now this is one that I've been wanting to make for a long time. This is how to position mobs correctly. Anytime I go into a dungeon and I'm DPSing or I'm healing, a lot of times I see tanks that just aren't aware of how to position a mob correctly to maximize their DPS. Why is this really important, learning where to place a mob? Does it really matter that much? Yes, it's going to help maximize all of your DPS, especially melee. They suffer the most from this. It'll help you get faster times in Mythic Plus, and it'll let the rest of the group focus on just mechanics and what their job pertains to, as opposed to running down and chasing down a mob the whole time. Now in general, how mobs should be placed is that the biggest thing is you should always face them away from the group. If it's a special mob, think of an Onyxia or something like that, a dragon with a tail that's going to do damage in the back, you want to give your group their side. If not, face them away from the group and give your whole group their back. If you remember last episode, we talked about two zones that every tank has, mitigated and non-mitigated zone. Now besides being zones for just tanks, every single mob in World of Warcraft actually has these zones, including the mobs that you're going to be tanking. Basically, you want your DPS to be in the non-mitigated zone, and you are going to be tanking the mob in the mitigated zone. So if you see here, you're going to see that even the automatic Blizzard AI is always DPSing in the non-mitigated zone. That's because that's where DPS is the most efficient. I have mentioned this in the past, but anytime you do a trash pull, you want to place the whole trash pull where it's going to stay in about 2 seconds from when you pull. However you want to achieve that is up to you. However, within 2 seconds of the pull, if you establish the place, that means that all of your melee can run there, start DPSing, your range know where to position themselves, and everybody will just be able to maximize themselves a little bit better. Now in terms of how to position a mob away from your ranged, the sweet spot is right around 20 yards for your ranged, be it physical ranged or magical ranged. About 20 yards is where you want them to be. Now the reason why this is so that they can avoid any cleaves, any big mechanics that a melee has to deal with. 20 yards allows them to avoid all of that damage. Anything more and you run the risk of them being out of range in case you need to run to avoid a mechanic yourself. Now before we do any pull, you should always examine which pull you're going to do. Now the melee is always going to chase you and come after you, so you don't need to worry about them as much as ranged, be them magic or physical. What you should do is place the trash pull right on top of the ranged target. If you basically run in, body pull, and stack on top of the ranged target, all of the melee trash will run to you and you'll have a perfect pull stacked on this target that wasn't going to be moving anyway. They no longer need to be off on the side, they can be cleaved down with everybody else, and you'll maximize your time running that dungeon. Something else that's very important, and I always mention it, is that while you're running into position, you should always have active mitigation up. There should never be a job that's so important it distracts you from having active mitigation up. If you do not have any form of mitigation up while you're positioning a mob, well, you're just as good as a DPSer and you're going to be taking huge amounts of damage. Something else to note, and you can see it here in the background, is even while you're dealing with mechanics, be it in a boss fight or a trash pull, in this case a boss fight, you shouldn't move the boss around too much. So here we see Horn of Valor go off. As soon as it goes off, I run back into position and make sure that mob does not move around at all. Always try to maintain the mob exactly where it is so that everybody knows how they're doing damage. So overall, if you keep a good distance away from your ranged and your healers, you're going to be in a good spot. They don't have to keep moving and chasing down mobs. If you position your pull within 2 seconds, normally on top of a ranged target, your melee DPS is going to have a good time. They're going to be able to cleave everything down. Your runs are going to be faster. You're going to be hitting Mythic Plus timers a lot easier, and everybody is just going to be able to do their job a little bit better. They're not going to have to run down and chase down mobs. They can focus on mechanics. They can focus on avoiding cleaves. Every run will go a little bit smoother if you as a tank know how to position mobs. Remember, your DPS wants to be in the non-mitigated zone, whether that's in the side or right behind the mob. Make sure you give them easy access to that zone and don't face any mob towards your group. Good luck tanking out there.